Okay. Well, usually he has played g3 against me with d5, d4, which is a cut down, but this time he played knight c3. Okay.
Magnus, could you put your thing a little... yes,
okay.
yes, thank you.
Okay. That's cool. Bishop d7. Yeah, rook e1 is the most normal here, but d4 is okay. Well, the problem was that I couldn't really remember what to do with this line. With knight g5, which, if I remember correctly, is not considered especially dangerous. But as I said, I couldn't remember much. I had to. Knight c6. The normal square in this line is d7, I guess. But I thought I had another idea with knight c6. Sorry. Like this? Okay. I thought I might at some point play knight a5 and then to b7. To b7, on b7 it takes d6 and can also jump to c5 and controls the c5 square in some lines. So that is actually quite a nice square for the knight. Okay. So a castle. Knight c4. Knight e8. And b3. Okay, rook a7. Well, at each move I have to calculate lines with e5 and trying to take one of the knights, but it seems that it just doesn't work. Like here, for example, queen f3 and now takes, and the knight is hanging. So f5 and now queen h5, because knight e6, then f e4 is probably good. So queen h5 and maybe even knight d6 here, but this is probably a bit easier. No, bishop g5, knight g5, knight f6, queen f3, and white is probably better. Or h6 than knight d6.
Would it be possible to play with e5 and then maybe with h6 just to drive this one out of the way? Or maybe...
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. It's committal, but the knight is then out of...
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, then some b5 or something, you know, after knight h3.
Okay, he cannot play knight c3 because of knight d4.
Yeah.
And knight d2 looks a bit artificial.
Oh, maybe knight d2 is good.
Maybe knight d2 is good.
Yeah, maybe it's good. It's artificial, but good.
Yeah, now the d5 square is quite weakened. White is somewhat better, I guess. Okay. So I played rook e7, and now rook ac1. Well, I had some options like playing for queen a8 and then b5, also h6, and knight f3, knight f6 was a possibility, but it didn't really satisfy me because it seemed to me that white was slightly better in all of the lines, which is why I decided to sharpen the play a bit. Knight c7, knight f3, and now f5.
How did you assess your position?
Well, I thought it was okay. It's complicated and my king will be somewhat weakened, but quite okay, I think. But my only worry was that, like in my last games, I had spent far too much time. So I was worried that my position was going to collapse in time trouble. Okay, g5. Okay, this is the logical follow-up, I think. So queen e3. Queen e3 just fails to g4, knight d4, and bishop g5. Now takes, and now win an exchange in the end. Okay, so queen d2 instead, g4. No, I tried knight e1, of course. Because if it goes to d4, then for example e3, knight e5, and now if it tries something like this, I just give a check probably, and queen b7, and he can't really do much because b4 and c5 will always be dangerous, since I can take on d4 and this king is very weak. So so it's better to put the knight on e1 instead. Okay, bishop g5. E3. And now rook f7. This, I think it's a reasonable prophylactic move. It prepares knight e8, and knight f6, preventing knight d5, and also prevents some tricks with knight a4 and c5. Okay, so knight d2, it's a very logical regrouping, I think. Knight e8. Is this? This was the position here. You played king g1, I think, in this position, and now knight e8, knight e2, and knight f6, knight f4. Now knight e4. I think knight e6 is quite strong. Now queen e8, now queen d5, knight b4 is good for black. Probably, at least, so knight takes g5 instead. Knight takes d2, knight takes f7. I thought this should be good for white, since I have so many weaknesses, and d6 pawn, d5 square, f4 square, f5 pawn, even my king might come under attack at some point, so I think this is better for white.